Hi, I'm Leonie West from Westalee Design, and I'm going to show you how to use our Artisan Curve templates. With the Artisan Curves we have a number of styles. We have diamonds and teardrops and circles, but at the moment we're just going to look at the circles. So I'm going to sew this sample with circles only. I will use different size templates. With our Artisan Curve templates, we've changed the key. And the reason for this is I want to be able to change templates a number of times as I go around a block. I could do the 1.5 inch circle and I can put a 1 inch circle inside, but only go around on that round of quilting in one movement. So we've made the key so that it works like a gate. We have this side which has been flattened, and we can lift the key up. We can put it back in. We can then easily lift that key again, bring it back, move it out around our foot, put another template in. And this is made possible because of our new key design. Artisan curves are marked with a central line that runs through the centre of the tool and comes out at the top. There is a reason for this. This is very important because we are working on rotations and we need a method of getting back to the same rotation point each time we go around. Before we can sew with our Artisan Curves, we need to lay down reference lines. I have marked these reference lines with a disappearing pen, and to mark 16 reference lines and have them accurate, I use our crosshair ruler. And our crosshair ruler is this ruler here. It has squares marked on it. It goes to 12.5 inches, and it's marked so I can overlay that on any quilt with squares in it and put 8 reference lines in. Once I've marked my 8 reference lines, I can then turn the template, line up these lines here, and get 16 or 32 reference lines. To use the crosshair ruler, we mark our centre point, then we put our crosshair ruler on so that it is on that centre location point, and line it up square with our block. We then mark in the slots to mark our 8 reference points. Once these reference points are marked, I can now turn my template, keeping the centre in place and lining up the line that is marked on the tool with the reference line I've drawn. If I go to this line, that will get me 32 reference lines. I have to do 3 turns. This line here is going to give me 16 reference lines. Most of the time I will only be using 16 reference lines, but I can easily get to 32 pattern repeats as we go around a block just using those 16 reference lines, and I'll show you how I do that later. With the quilt blocked, the sandwich put together, place the pin through the centre, so I've located that. I can now move my template into a different hole, which changes the outer position of the circle that I'm going to sew. We don't need the black paper, it's just for demonstration. I'm going to locate at number 4, which is here. I'm going to move so my foot is in position, close the gate. If I am wanting to change this and not break threads, I will open the gate. I can then move my template out of there, put a new template in. So that is why we have the gate, and when the gate is closed, my circle is a complete circle. I'm now ready to sew. I've brought my threads up, I have my tool located, I have the centre reference line on the tool lined up with the reference line I marked on the quilt. We're going to sew from reference line to the second reference line. So we're going to sew, come over this one and sew on this one. When we get to this reference line, we are going to stop. We're going to rotate the template, sew the next one. What we're doing is stitching every second reference line to reference line, using the centre line and the reference line in the middle to keep our tool in the right alignment. So here we go. We're riding our foot against the edge of the template. We're going to stop on the reference line. Always stopping needle down. Remember, when we're using our ruler foot, if our needle is down, our foot is down. If our foot is up, our needle is up. So we always make sure that that needle is up before we raise our foot. So now I'm turning the template. The template's going to just touch the edge of the foot. My line is in line with my reference line, and I'm going to sew the next one. We can be sewing these as complete circles. We can be sewing them as part circles, and it depends on what you want to create with your quilt as to where you go. We've got to the next line. We're going to stop, move the template round, line it up again, and keep going. When you're doing this, you can keep turning the template round, lining up, and go all the way around. If you were doing this on a large quilt, you would want to turn the fabric as little as possible. But this template is 9 inches long, and if I'm working on a 6-inch throated machine, it's going to collect with the half of the machine. So I'm quite happy, because I'm only working on an 18-inch block, to turn my block as need be. We're lining up again, and we're going to stitch to the next one. This is going to give us 8 patterns that we will see in our quilt. We're working on 16 lines, but one of them is for reference, and the other 2 are where we're stitching to. With Artisan Curves, we can stitch to those lines, or we can stitch to the pattern that we've sewn. So we're lining back up again with that reference line and coming around. The next one we're going to do is going to be the last one that we do. I'm turning it, makes it easier for you to see what I'm doing, having it in this position. We're going to sew the last one, and we're going to stop on the reference line from before. It's also going to stop at the stitching line. So there's our pattern coming into place. We're touching pattern to pattern here. Here I'm going to break the threads. You do not have to break the threads. You can continue and go all the way around, all the way to the outer edge if you want, by travelling and not having to sew ends in all the time. I'm just going to break this so you can see where we went to. So there's our template that we used, which is circle 1.5 inch. It's actually circle 04, and that is the pattern that we've sewn. From there, we now build out, adding more repeats of circles or any of the shapes that we make. And how we're going to do this next one is I'm going to move the template from 4, and you audition it. You decide what you want. If I bring it up and put it at 6, I'm going to have this amount of the pattern showing. I can also bring it up, go to 8, and it will bump into here, and then I will have a little portion where I'm going to have to travel. I can also bring it so that I'm working on the reference line over. We worked on this reference line and sewed from this to this. If I move it across, so here is central, my pattern's going to offset. It still works the same way, I just have an alteration in how it goes. I'm going to come back one step, and I will sew here. I'm looking to see that I'm going to be pretty close to touching that line on each of these, and that's where I'll aim for. Easy way to check: put the foot down, have a look and see where the needle is dropping. My needle will locate on this one about 2 millimeters away from the reference line. If I come down further, my needle is going to locate pretty close to the same position. If I come out further, I can't get my template in the correct position, so I would have to be moving my needle in. Then I'll sew around, and I'll have a larger space between the two where I'm going to be backtracking. So you have a lot of options as to where you head with that. I've decided to locate the template in the 5.5 inch hole, and I'm going to have a little travel space in this one. Bringing the threads up again, and this way you'll be able to see the travel that I do to get from the line to the next. Starting on the line, making sure my tool is lined up with my reference line again, we're going to go around. So we're going to come around to here. When we stop, we're going to we're just on the line, so that's great. I'm going to turn the template, line it up again, make sure we're in place, and off we go. So what I'm doing is putting a second half circle around the first one, and this is my second round of stitches. We can make lots of rounds that just keep going round. I'll just sew this one and you can see what happens as we go. We're always needing to line up that reference line. If the reference line is not quite there, you may just do one little travel stitch, which is what I was talking about before. Travelling's not difficult, it is just stitching on the stitch line from the previous row.
Right.
And the more you practice with your backtracking or travelling, the easier it will become. So I'm just dropping one extra stitch in there to get me to my reference line being in place. And we're almost back to the beginning. It doesn't take long to create your pattern. So we're now back to the start of that round and we're going to stop there. We'll take the key out and just have a look at how that looks. I won't break the threads on this one. So we have 2 rounds. It has a large space in here. I'm going to put something else in there later to complete that centre out. I could have built that centre with the template and made full circles go into there. We're going to continue using the same template and bring it out to another position. This time I'm going to go to 6.5, bring it out to there, but to get this one to sew, I'm going to have to do a backtrack across here. If you're not confident in backtracking yet, you can actually break the threads and cut the threads. Sew them in and no one will know where you started, or we can backtrack. So we're just travelling around that stitch line. You don't have to backtrack quickly. When our ruler touches the edge of the foot, we're ready to go round. Now we're going to get to here, and what's happened here is I can't relocate to that position. So what I'm going to do is backtrack on my circle. I know I'm a bit over 1/4 inch each side of the line because I can tell that from where I stopped with the first one. Turn my template, one more stitch, and then I should be on line with my reference line. Now we're back in line with the reference line and we can do our next circle. We're going to have to backtrack again and just go all the way around doing the same. One pattern is the same as the pattern as is next to it. Reference line back in place. So we only have one more to go to finish this round, and then I'll show you what that looks like. And remember, we are only using one template in here at the moment. So that's our next round complete. So round 1, 2 and 3. I've changed the template to the 2-inch circle, which is 0.5. I've got my pin at number 7 lined up, and I'm going to sew around here, and it's going to give me a 1/4 inch echo around that row that we did. This is where I love the Artisan Curves, because it is so much easier to do an echo like that around a circle than to freehand travel around a circle, stitch a couple of stitches across, line up again, and away we go. And we'll just work our way around doing this. In the first round we went stitching reference line to reference line. The second round we went stitch line to stitch line, and again we're doing stitch line to stitch line. We are using the reference lines to line that template up all the time, but we're using the stitching line from the previous round to give us our repeat point. So we've just put a 1/4 inch echo around those circles. For the next round we're going to do something different. What we're going to do is sew the outer circle, but we're going to stop here on the reference line. Then I'm going to change the template. I'm going to sew a small circle into here, change the template again, and come back to here. I'm locating at position 9. One thing I like to do is mark my templates so that I know that these are both going to be at position 9. I can mark them with a whiteboard marker, or I can mark them with a frictions pen, something that's going to come off easily. So we're at 9, we're going to sew around till we get to the reference line. When we get to that reference line, we're going to stop sewing and change the template. So we're at the reference line, open the key, move your template away, bring the next template into place, locate on 9 again, put the key back into position, and we're just going to sew that little 1/2 inch circle in here. Now we could sew that 1/2 inch circle and then put a 1 inch circle around it by changing that template again. It's up to you how much work you want to do. I like the fact that I can use these templates, create something completely different. I like playing with the different sizes and doing different things, and I don't mind changing templates like this. That circle could either be on the inside of my circle that I've done, as I've done here. That circle could also be sewn going up and away from that circle. So we've got to here, we're going to backtrack again, just the same as we did before. We're going to bring the template back into line with the reference line, and we're going to sew up to that line again. Stop on the line. We're now going to change the template over. Make sure we're located in number 9. Make sure we're on the reference line and sew a circle. Stop on the reference line. Change templates again. Making sure we're in the right hole, which is number 9. Locating the template. And we'll just go around and keep going around until all of these are done. I've finished the complete round where I've got my circle with the little 1/2 inch circle inside. Now what I'm going to do is put a 1/4 inch echo around that circle. We used a 2 inch circle for this one, so we're going to use a 2.5 inch circle for the next one. If I put it on the 9 mark, which is where I did this circle, it's going to sit on top of it. You will create a pattern that comes out here, and that could be interesting. But if I move it up to the 9.5, then I'm going to have a 1/4 inch stitch line. If I move to the 10, I will have a 1/2 inch stitch line. So we're going to do the 9.5 mark on this one. So this is going to give us our 1/4 inch echo. I like the fact with the Artisan Curves, the pin system allows us to put a perfect, beautiful 1/4 inch echo around our first line, because we have the pin to move us up that 1/4 inch, and we also have our reference line on the template, so that we have it lined up with that reference line. When we sew across with our back stitch, we use our foot as our 1/4 inch reference line, because the foot gives us a 1/4 inch to the stitch line. So it's very easy to just work our way around using those reference points and the foot to give us our beautiful 1/4 inch echo. We finished this echo, and what I'm going to do now is place another circle coming out further. So I'm just going to do a test to see what it looks like. If I go to 10 and place it in here, that will look nice. I could go to 11 and put that one in. We'll go to 11 just to make it easy today. But that tells me I've got to backtrack to this point over here. We were at 9.5, so I'll put it back on 9.5. Line up my template again, and I can use the template to give me my backtracking mark. So if I'm travelling quite a distance and want to have 8, use the template to do that. We know it was around here where I changed, so I'll put it back to 11, put the template in the next position. I'm ready to sew that. I have maybe 2 stitches that I can freehand. It was actually 1 stitch to freehand to get me onto that template line. So now we're going to sew around this one. So use the tools to help you when you need to backtrack to a new position. Use the tools to figure out what you're actually going to do in the next one. So we're into here. We're going to be getting to this line, and we're going to have a large space with a lot of backtracking across the top of the circle. I'm going to have these coming from this line here. So I'll backtrack up that line and come around. Come back to the line down here. Going to move the template again to this line, backtrack back up to there. If I wanted to, I could have used the template to give me that backtrack mark. When we foot touching the template again, we go round. This will give us another look to how our circles work. Remember, what I'm doing with the circles can be done with all of the artisan curves. We're coming back to here, we're going to backtrack again. This can be done with the circles, there's diamonds, all of the different shapes that we make, and the different shapes will give you different interesting effects, but when you start mixing two different shapes together is when things become really interesting. I'm going to use the template to backtrack up here. I know it's around here somewhere, that's where I'll stop with there. Turn the template, line it up, and just do that couple of stitches freehand. So you've got different ways to help. If you're learning to backtrack, it's not difficult, just do it slowly, and the only way you'll get your backtracking to look lovely is by practicing. So we're about here. Probably went a little bit far that time, so I'll just come back. It's only a couple of stitches. You can also put a mark on the template to help you know. Just use your friction pens. I know that when I get to around here, that's where my backtracking is going to stop. So just put a mark on that template. When you're finished with it, it just wipes away. We're almost back to the beginning of this pattern, and when I make my artisan curve patterns, I actually am playing and designing it as I go. I don't plan it and work out how it's going to look. You can do that. I just like the freedom that it gives me to make up my own mind as I'm going. What happens with this pattern that I've sewn is we've come around here and we have these open loops that go all the way round. But the very first one we sewed went round and came to here. It's this one here. So what I will do is stitch that last one. I will come over here, bring it to that line, which is the same as what we have here, and then I'll undo this small amount of thread. Just unpick it, sew the ends in, and that will look the same as here with that open. We could have also done all of them with the crossover, and that would give us another pattern. So this is the last one, and I will sew to where we end on the line. I'll stop here, bring up my thread, sew the ends in, and I'll undo this one.